Hello everyone, welcome back to the Hunting Hour. I hope you enjoy our stories today. First story, knocking at the window. It started with a knock, just a soft, gentle tapping at my window. 3 knocks, then silence. I thought it was a branch, or maybe the wind. It was autumn after all, and the trees outside my house scraped against the siding whenever the breeze picked up. So, I ignored it, turned over in bed and pulled the blanket over my head. But then it came again. 3 knocks, slow, deliberate. I checked my phone, 2:43 a.m. This time I sat up. My room was dark except for the faint glow of the streetlight filtering through the blinds. I told myself it was nothing, just my imagination. But then came another knock, louder. This time, closer, like whoever or whatever was outside wanted to make sure I heard it. I slid out of bed and walked toward the window. My heart was racing, but I didn't want to admit I was scared. I reached for the blinds and pulled them apart, just enough to peek through. Nothing. Just the empty yard and the old oak tree swaying gently in the wind. I exhaled, laughing nervously at myself. I was being stupid, paranoid. I closed the blinds and turned back toward bed. That's when I saw the handprint. It was faint but clear, smeared on the glass. 5 long fingers. The print was much too high for anyone normal to reach without a ladder, and it wasn't foggy outside. There was no reason for a handprint to be there. The air was dry and cold. I stood frozen, staring at it, until another knock came, this time from the other window. I jumped. My room only had 2 windows, one above my bed and one near my desk. The knocking came again. 3 slow taps. I backed toward the door, but I didn't take my eyes off the window. Slowly, I turned the knob and slipped into the hallway, shutting the door behind me. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room with all the lights on, listening, waiting, but nothing else happened. The next morning, I checked outside. There were no footprints beneath my window. No signs of anyone being there, just the handprint on the glass, as if it had been burned into the window. It wouldn't wipe off, no matter how hard I scrubbed. That night, I locked the windows, shut the blinds tight, left the lights on again. It still knocked at exactly 2:43 a.m. 3 knocks, always 3, and every time I checked, there was no one there. Just the handprint. By the 3rd night, I was a wreck. I hadn't slept. I hadn't told anyone because I was afraid they wouldn't believe me, or worse, that saying it out loud would make it worse. I decided to stay up, phone in hand, ready to record whatever happened. I sat on the bed, watching the window, 2:43 a.m. The knocking started. I raised my phone, recording as I stood and walked slowly toward the window. The blinds were still shut, but the knocking was louder now, more insistent. I reached out, heart hammering, and pulled them apart. Nothing, but when I looked at the video on my phone, my stomach dropped. In the recording, I could see something standing just beyond the glass. Something tall, pale, its face pressed against the window, its mouth too wide, grinning, showing rows of needle-like teeth. I dropped the phone and stumbled back. When I looked again, it was gone. The next night, I nailed the window shut, closed every curtain in the house, blocked the doors. I even considered sleeping in the bathtub with the shower curtain closed. Like that would keep me safe. It knocked anyway. Now it wasn't just the window, it was the walls, the ceiling, the floors. Always 3 knocks. Always at 2:43. And then the whispers started. I couldn't understand them at first. Just soft murmurs beneath the knocking. Then they grew clearer. It was saying my name, over and over. The last night I spent in that house, the knocking didn't come from the window, it came from the inside of my closet. I left. I don't know how I made it out. I just ran. Didn't take anything with me. I got in my car and drove until the sun came up. I stay in motels now, never in the same place for more than a night or 2. I keep the lights on. I check every window before I sleep, but I can't escape it. Every night at 2:43 a.m., no matter where I am, I hear it. 3 slow knocks and the whisper of my name. Second story of the day, ***, whispers in the dark. Sleep if you dare. I used to think sleep was safe, that the worst that could happen was a bad dream or a sleepless night. But that was before the whispers started. Before I learned what it really meant to be afraid of the dark. It all began when I moved into my new apartment. It was cheap, too cheap, but I was desperate. The building was old, the walls were thin, and the hallways smelled like mildew. But it was mine. For the first few nights, everything was fine. The usual creaks and groans of an old place settling didn't bother me. Until the 5th night, I woke up around 1:30 a.m. But not because of a noise. It was because it was too quiet. That heavy kind of silence that feels wrong, like the world is holding its breath. Then I heard it. A soft whisper coming from the corner of my room. At first I thought I was dreaming. The words didn't make sense, like someone speaking a language I didn't know. I turned on the lamp. No one was there, just shadows. The next night, it happened. Again, I heard it clearer this time. My name, a breathy, drawn-out whisper. It came from just beneath my bed. I stayed perfectly still, heart pounding so hard I thought I was going to pass out. Slowly, I swung my legs over the side, grabbed my phone, and turned on the flashlight. There was nothing there. I told myself it was stress. Maybe I was imagining things because I was tired. I tried to sleep on the couch the next night, but the whispers followed me. This time, they started right in my ear. Soft, cold breath brushing against my skin. I bolted out of the apartment at 3 a.m. in nothing but sweatpants and a hoodie. I stayed at an all-night diner until the sun came up. When I finally came back, I found something waiting for me. A message. It was scrawled on the living room wall in something dark and sticky. It said, "Sleep if you dare." I scrubbed it off with bleach and told myself it was a prank, that someone had broken in. But I couldn't explain how they'd gotten in without breaking. The locks. I even changed them the next day, but I still didn't sleep. The whispers got louder. Every night, they started earlier. Sometimes I'd hear them right after sunset. Sometimes they'd come when the lights were still on. Once, I caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my pale face in the dark corner of the ceiling. Mouth open wide, whispering fast and frantic. I started recording at night. I set my phone up and left it on the dresser, pointed at my bed. In the morning, I found hours of footage. Nothing moved. But at exactly 2:13 a.m., the screen filled with static. And through the static, I heard them. The whispers, and then something worse, breathing, right next to the microphone. One night I stayed up, armed with a kitchen knife, my back to the wall. I watched the clock tick past midnight. I watched the shadows move, even when there was no reason for them to move. I heard the whispers gather around me like a crowd I couldn't see. They told me things I didn't want to hear. How I was alone, how no one would ever find me, how I would never sleep again. I haven't, not really. I doze sometimes, sitting up with the lights on, but every time my head droops, I feel them. Cold fingers brushing my neck, a voice hissing in my ear, telling me to sleep, daring me, and if I do, I know they'll be waiting. Sometimes I see things when I blink, faces just behind my eyelids, eyes too wide, mouths whispering, never stopping, never silent. I moved out of the apartment, left everything behind, but it didn't matter. They followed me now, even when I'm somewhere safe, somewhere bright and warm. I hear them whispers in the dark, daring me to sleep.